Are you a conservative comic? Is that a reasonable thing to say? No.
No, I was as left can be. I didn't get the COVID shot. That's when people started saying I was conservative.
So we saw each other on Kill Tony. I didn't expect that.
I didn't know you were gonna be there.
Neither did I. Tony's a rough guy. Tony's so angry because everybody thinks he's gay.
Well, fuck yeah. Fucking amazing.
You don't hold back.
I will, but
don't
I'm
hold
not gonna
back.
Russell Brand you. Manipulation of the condensation, of the retriculation, of the mastication, of the masturbation, you know, and that's what I think about oat milk.
How many impressions can you do?
Upwards of 50. By the way, I love RFK Jr., but I said, why does every woman under 30 sound like RFK Jr.? And then I started doing this whole thing about, you know, this is how women sound in bed, you know, I want you to choke me.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. So, a lighter podcast today, given that I'm speaking with a comedian, Tyler Fischer. Tyler's in the midst of a lengthy multi-city tour. He's got 100 venues lined up before the end of the year, before the end of 2025. It's light, of course, because it's comedy, but there's a dark edge to it too, and that's also not so uncommon in comedy. And the dark edge is, he's probably one of the most well-counseled comedians that are still staggering around, so to speak, today. And we delve into that. And we also investigated the relationship between acting, entertaining, being truthful, and being genuine. Tyler told me that when he was a kid, he used his acting ability, his comedic ability, as a defense in a way, as a mode of coping, and that it wasn't until he was in his 30s that a more genuine approach to his thoughts melded with his acting ability. So we delved into that, his familial background, the trouble he encountered as a kid, his encounter over a decade or more with cancel culture, his acting career, and then his reemergence, really, on the comedic stage prior to the tour that is going on now until the end of 2025. So join us for that. So, think you deserve all this attention? 3 cameras, like 10 people, all focused on you?
This is for you, come on. Though I did wear this for you.
Okay, and now you have to explain why, because the connection escapes me.
Just the color. You like colorful things.
Oh yes, okay.
So this was a Jordan inspired. I washed my shoes in the sink this morning for you.
Oh, that's impressive.
And then I made my damn bed.
Yeah, well, that's really, going the whole 9 yards. So the last time I saw you, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Welcome.
I think the last time I saw you was at Rogan's Comedy Mothership. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did Kill Tony together.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
Yeah, how many new comedians' careers do you think we destroyed that night?
Oh,
between my shit. Can we swear in this?
You can do whatever you want.
Okay.
Well,
right.
within
within
reasonable bounds.
Yeah. I'm not going to play Kanye's new song.
Yeah.
Quite yet.
That's probably wise.
Sure.
Yeah.
But now did you?
My friend Jonathan Pajot thinks the post-war interpretation of the world is coming to an end and that Kanye is leading that.
That could be true.
Oh, who the hell knows what's true?
Yeah. Have you listened to the song?
Yes.
Sure.
When did I listen to it?
I heard it in the car as you pulled up.
Yeah. No, that was old punk, I think, that I was playing, or the Pogues. I don't remember what was going on.
Yeah, I liked old Kanye's music, and then I saw him get very cocky and, godlike, and I shut off. I said, this isn't going to end well.
Yeah,
and I was kind of alone in that.
He's got a manic touch, so
sure.
that inflates people.
Yep.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's very strange, and it's very hard to know what to make of it, and I don't. And I mean, I've seen a terrible rise in anti-Semitic content on university campuses. Let's start there.
Sure.
Go Columbia
and
Harvard,
places.
Bloody pathetic hellholes.
Sure.
And but on X too. And although
they didn't actually even let me in, I applied. So talk about not being inclusive.
That's for sure.
Pretty much no college let me in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, has it turned out okay for you?
It has. I dropped out. I went to the University of Rhode Island for acting.
Oh, you did?
The prestigious acting school in the middle of Rhode Island.
When did you do that?
Well, I'm 38, so I started at 18. I took an improv class in high school, and I was a horrible kid, horrible. Just probably like you. I remember some stories about your childhood in Canada.
Yeah. Was I horrible? I don't know.
You started drinking what age?
Friends? Oh, yeah, 14.
I got you beat, 10.
10?
Yeah, I might be as tall as you if I didn't start smoking. Yes.
What did you start drinking at 10?
I was drinking beer. I was smoking cigarettes, marijuana. Started dating around then. So I've kind of peaked. You should have had me on 20 years ago.
Yeah. What about the criminal activity?
Breaking into cars. Theft, robbing stores. I had a
robbing stores in what sense? Shoplifting?
Shoplifting.
Okay. That's slightly different than actually robbing a store.
Sure. I stole this from Gap Kids. I was very tiny, and I was hanging out with kids 4 or 5 years older than me. And parents went through.
You could fit into places they couldn't go?
They would send me over the counter and into there'd be a little space in a car window, and I would slip through and come out with the Discman and all that stuff. And so that's how I started getting attention, was doing these pretty extreme kind of, but somewhat funny behaviors. And all these kids loved it. And my parents had just gone through a divorce, so I was probably seeking, some trouble and maybe a father figure as well.
Yeah. How'd that work out?
I'm a good dad, but divorce is messy. And you're the first person I heard probably really criticize it properly.
Which divorce?
Yeah. I've never heard anyone say that before.
Tell me what you remember.
From what you said?
Yeah.
You said maybe not that it should be banned, but that it should be very rarely used.
Just like abortion.
Safe,
legal, and rare.
Yeah, that reminds me.
Guess the Democrats kind of mucked up on the rare side, eh? Fancy that.
Well, with the abortion, their time is limited, because look what's happening. Most they're pro-abortion. They love getting rid of those kids. If they do have kids, they're chopping their genitals off. Now they're blowing each other's Teslas up. They can't even make it to the abortion clinic. So I tell the conservatives, I go, just give it 10 years. Just quiet down and sit back, and they're killing themselves.
So what's it like being are you a conservative comic? Is that a reasonable thing to say? No.
No, I encourage comedians to not attach any political label to it. I mean, I was as left can be. I grew up in
hence the criminality.
Yes, exactly. In the Jew hating. No. A lot of my
right can manage that.
I just found out I'm Jewish.
Oh. So you're self-hating now.
I'm part Jewish.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not down here. I'm fully Christian down here. But my great-grandmother had an affair with a Ashkenazi Jew and had my grandfather. So I'm not linked to the Fischer bloodline at all. My last name is Landorf, and I come from a very short, stocky Jewish heritage. So that just came out.
How did you find that out?
23andMe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Didn't they sell all their DNA samples to the Chinese?
Oh, probably.
Yeah, I think so. That means they can target viruses for all of us.
Sure.
Yeah.
But that's when people started saying I was conservative, because I didn't get the COVID shot, mostly because my pediatrician said I was too tiny.
Right.
Just listening to my doctor.
Right.
But that was the beginning for me.
So why didn't you get the shot?
Apart
from being sane. I got the goddamn shot. That was stupid.
Well,
I was so sick, though, I couldn't think, so.
You got what, 1?
2.
2?
Yeah.
Your body, your choice. I know people took you to task for that, but I don't care if anyone got it. It's the forced, it's the mandated thing.
That's for sure.
I don't think
that was absolutely unconscionable. There's been some things happen in the last decade that are just beyond comprehension, and that is certainly one of them.
The cops are coming just from us talking about
it. Right.
But that's when people started going, oh, you're far right. You're a Trump supporter because you didn't get the COVID shot. And
far right is pretty much anything that isn't communist, so.
That's true.
That's especially true in Europe.
Right.
Yeah.
But I thought first of all, he made it, right? His brilliance is pushing things through regulation. That's why he has buildings all over New York City. He can skip regulation. So Trump got that shot made so much faster than it would have. You remember everyone said, even Trump said, it'll take, they said it'll take 10 years, Jordan, right? They said it'll take 20 years. I made it in 2 days, right? 2 days, warp speed, they say, warp speed. And I'm going, if I loved Trump, I would have done whatever he said. So that on its head was just backwards. That was the first time I go, the politicization of this is completely, there's no basis for it.
Profit.
Yeah.
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 Welcome to parenting. There's a natural joy in raising a toddler that's unlike anything else in life. You have to admire a child's creativity in misbehaving. It's very important for children to understand what the rules are that guide a particular situation. Find what the reality of the social situation actually is. How many times a day do you think you're having a disciplinary struggle with your son?
At least 3 times a day.
Children test their boundaries by pushing their limits, by misbehaving. You have to be patient with that, but also firm.
We want to foster a spirit of cooperation within our family.
Your interactions with your children shouldn't ever be about what other people think of you. You should be attending to the situation at hand and doing the right thing for your kid. Yeah, no, it's a hell of a situation to set up where the vaccine manufacturers have no liability and they can use force. Like, that's just an invitation to psychopaths, obviously, because you can make an infinite amount of money with no consequences. Like, there's a deal for you.
Sure.
So yeah, it's pretty sad. So we saw each other on Kill Tony. I didn't expect that, by the way.
I didn't either. I didn't know you were going to be there.
Neither did I. I showed
I'm
up
glad
and Tony asked me to participate, which was very good of him, and I had quite a fine time. It was
Sure.
quite fun, but I really didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Well, I
But
didn't.
that's often the case. So
Had you seen it before?
Yeah.
You had seen the show?
Yeah.
Okay, I hadn't really seen it before. So I just watched a clip or two.
yeah, well, I hadn't seen the whole show either. I'd just seen enough of it to kind of know what was going on. So
what did
Took
you-
me a bit of time to put 2 and 2 together. Well, I've watched it. I was at Rogan's Comedy Mothership within the last month again. And, because I was on Rogan, that was the reason. And Kill Tony was on that night. And what do I think of it? Well, Tony's a rough guy. He's got a saw-edged tongue.
Yeah.
And he's kind of no holds barred. But it's a weird show because it's brutal and it's a great opportunity. And so that's a weird juxtaposition because if people do well, they can have a career.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. And Tony's provided that. And I guess the price that people pay for having that opportunity is if they have to put up with the skewering. And maybe that's a fair deal. I mean, everybody's doing it. They're all adults. And
It is definitely a rocket ship version of success compared to when I started. There was no viral clips. You had to spend 10 years in basements in New York City, just getting brutalized. But imagine Kill Tony, but in a basement with 6 or 7 comedians.
Right.
No real audience.
Right.
And
So
we
Kill
beat
Tony.
the shit out of each other.
Right. So Kill Tony's probably no more brutal than it was before, and it's a lot faster.
It's just in front of the world, which
Yeah.
is, to me, it's I feel fortunate that didn't happen to me. I had about 15 years of really getting dirty before any.
So tell
of
me how did your career start? So you said you were a terrible delinquent and you were drinking when you were 10. And did you become an alcoholic?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I was addicted to it, but luckily it didn't stick. I think finding performing it set me free.
Oh yeah. How come?
Well, I was failing out of high school, and I was friends with the acting teacher, and we would hang out. And we would do drugs together.
That's definitely hanging out with the acting teacher. Yeah.
Public school. And I thought, if I take his class, I'll pass. I needed the class. And so I went and I got on stage and.
So you were friends with him before you took the class?
Yeah. I took it to guarantee an A to pass me.
Okay, how did it happen that you befriended him or vice versa before you took the class?
Well, public school. The teachers were sleeping with kids, and this was not uncommon in public school. Maybe it was
uncommon in the public school I went to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Us privileged white kids were getting, doing drugs with our teachers.
I see.
Yeah. No,
this was in Rhode Island?
This was in Connecticut. This was right outside of New Haven. So parents got divorced when I was 7. My father came out of the closet. He came out as...
that's a shock.
Came out as racist.
Oh.
No, he came out as homophobic. Gay, sorry. He came out as gay when I was 7. And, so I also have a
so that's what precipitated the divorce.
No, he was just really messy. Yeah, it had something to do with it.
Yes, no doubt.
They tried 2 years to stick it out and didn't stick.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was out of control, absolutely out of control. And so suddenly, your parents are fighting and using you as weapons.
Yeah.
I've forgiven
Siblings?
them. I love my parents. 2 brothers.
Older, younger?
2 older brothers. Yeah, we're all 2 years apart. One has also since come out of the closet. I could come out any day now.
Well, the shirt.
I'm getting. Yeah. Well, I was raised by a gay father.
I think Tony's so angry because everybody thinks he's gay.
Well, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking amazing. He's also so disarming because of his voice.
Yeah.
So he has that beautiful mixture of being absolutely brutal, but you're never gonna fucking this kind of soft voice. And so yeah, that's how I was raised. My mom was losing her mind and dating, psychopaths. So that was one house. The other house was my dad, finally exploring his new life. As a gay man in the 90s.
Oh yeah, that's complicated.
Tail end of the AIDS epidemic. And so I got on stage.
So it was on from that to the art teacher.
Yeah, and getting on stage and it all just, people were laughing and I was doing impressions and voices, all of which me and my brothers, that was our coping mechanism as kids. So we would watch Saturday Night Live and we would watch comedy in South Park and that was our healing process.
So you had
very
competitive
funny.
humor with your brothers.
Yes, and very extreme, very physical, very extreme type of humor. So once that hit on stage, he said, "You have to do this for your living."
Okay, so you took the acting course in high school, and then you went to Rhode Island.
Went to Rhode Island.
How long were you there?
I was there for 3 years.
Was it useful?
It was very useful.
Okay, tell me why. What did you do?
I had some teachers, and again, this was before, the political correctness stuff got out of control.
What year?
The wokeness. This was 2005.
Right. I would have pegged you younger than 38, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, I guess that's a compliment.
Probably the plastic surgery.
Yeah, could be.
Wearing my
It's your rosy complexion.
placenta mask at night,
That's too much information. That's all.
Rhode Island, acting school. You can get messy, you can fuck up, you can be offensive. There was no offensive. Mm-hmm. It was the first day of acting class. The entire class was crying because it got that messy. We were doing these exercises where you had to push somebody, Mm-hmm. You might have a line that says like, get away, and then get away, then get away, then you push them. We did exercises where you would be physically held to the ground and you had to use your monologue to get out of it. I had this teacher, she was twisted, but in the perfect way. And so, what a gift, because I just made it.
The universities didn't really go sideways till about 2000 and started around 2010. And so you were in there when they still functioned.
Yep. And there was no casting based on race or gender or any of that stuff. So I got
height?
No height. No height. Well, no, we'll get to that.
Sorry, you made a bunch of jokes, so
we'll get to that. Yeah, you have that height privilege. Yeah.
I was small. Well, everyone was small as a child, but I was like under 5'2", I think, when I graduated from high school. So that was rather annoying.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. I think
bet
when
that
I
was
first
tough.
got my driver's license, I had to sit on like 2 phone books to see over the top of the dash.
Oh, really?
That was not very good for my like cool status among.
But it probably
the
made you
patriots
funny
of
because you are
Fairview.
very funny.
Yeah, well, I had to use my mouth,
Yeah.
to defend myself against the bullies.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then you grew.
And my friends, like the Northern Albertan culture was a comedic culture. Like Northern Albertans are very funny. Albertans in general. And I had a lot of friends who just, all we did was tell jokes to each other. All we did was our competition was really for wit. That was
The
it.
laughs, the biggest laugh.
Absolutely. The biggest laugh won, yeah. And I had some great friends, guys I still know, who were, they were extremely funny. So that was fun, really fun.
Yeah, you could have been a comedian. I mean, you're kind of lucky because you can get away with sneaking jokes in without the pressure of people expecting. I saw you at the Beacon Theater in 2019. And I did the whole, got the damn suit on.
Good.
Yeah,
Put the damn suit on.
You cost me a lot of money.
Good,
all this,
good.
Got the suit on and yep. I just found my ticket actually.
See, I can't tell a joke, like a prepared joke. And when I lecture, I don't ever use notes or anything like that. Like it has to be spontaneous.
Oh, we can tell.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
it's great. I love that. I copied
It's
you.
improv.
I stopped using notes, set lists, all of that based on your
Uh-huh.
hearing you say that.
Yeah, well, you can take notes beforehand and you can, sort your head out, but it's way better to,
Because then you have to find it.
well, and you can also pay attention to the audience, which makes a huge difference, right? Because you get that connection and you can play off the understanding of the audience, and then they trust you because you're trusting them, and the dynamic is much better. No one should lecture with notes, and no one should ever read a lecture. Well, there is the odd person who can get away with it, but they have to be like professional actors to manage that.
Sure.
And maybe I could learn to tell jokes that were scripted, but generally something will pop into my head and I think, I'm going to say this. I don't give a damn.
Well, you have that long, drawn out, pause because again, we're not expecting the laugh, and so I saw you milk things, and maybe you didn't know the line was coming, but you got a couple huge pops in that theater.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's great fun to manage that. Yeah, well, and the set is actually, the lecture has a comedic structure in a way because the whole lecture, if it works right, has a punchline. And that punchline isn't necessarily one that will elicit laughs, but that's also something
shit,
that's
yeah.
extremely entertaining, is to try to juggle a number of balls and then land them. And that's what you do if you land a joke, and that's great.
Sure.
And then the audience is very appreciative of that, and the whole evening concludes in a satisfactory manner. The weird thing is, the same thing often happens in a podcast. I've noticed that if you pay enough attention, which you always should do, by the way, I figured out this week that everything is a burning bush if you pay enough attention to it. That's what that story in the Old Testament means, is that if you get to the bottom of something by paying attention to it, you see God. That's right. That's right. That's what happens with hallucinogens, is you get that experience. But if you pay enough attention to anything, it's capable of revealing everything. In any case, if you pay enough attention in a podcast, there'll be a natural narrative arc, and then there'll be a landing, where the guest says something that really concludes things nicely, and all that depends on is paying enough attention to. So that's fun to track.
And it's why you have to also get your everything in your life straightened out the way you've encouraged people to, because you can't have that type of focus if you have all of these other things.
Yeah,
happening.
that's right.
So it's worth you nearly killing yourself to do, which and that's when I
So how do you figure that out?
Started watching your damn lectures.
Yeah. And you took them with some degree of seriousness?
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah,
what changed?
That was about 8 years ago.
Well, what changed?
Well, everyone has their own personal things in life. I had my traumas as a kid, and I'm lucky. I do love my family, but for Christ's sake, everybody has gone through hell in some way or another, and going through what I did as a kid, you know, I didn't even know what being gay was. And so having a gay father and a mother with some proclivity, I'd say, or some predisposed mental illness probably, seeing her crumble, you know, and then I started taking care of her, and then never talking to anyone about that. That's a lot for a child.
Oh, yeah.
And every child has gone through that. And so then I had no life skills, because we never told each other the truth growing up, which is brutal.
That's not good.
And when I did, my mom would cry and my dad would yell. So I learned how to just make jokes and make everybody happy, which was killing me. And I did that until I was 30. And when I was about 30, my mother tried to kill herself, and I found her. So that was sort of the seed of waking me up in ever, you know, a never-ending list of ways. But it was. I think you've talked about this, right? You if you're kind of in the middle, you're not going to change anything. You know, you have to hit a certain rock bottom for something to wake you up, because you see people just coasting, and
that's kind of the opposite of the burning bush.
Sure.
That hitting rock bottom.
The wet bush
means you get the wet stick.
Yeah.
That means that you get to the bottom of something, and sometimes it's hell. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Often
it
it's
kind of
hell.
has to be.
Hello, everybody. I want to bring to your attention a product, an online product that I've been working on with my son, Essay.app. We designed Essay to solve the problem of teaching people how to write. That's a very deep problem because it's hard to learn how to write. You need to learn how to write because there isn't any real difference between writing and thinking. And thinking is useful if you want to stay out of pits and move forward effectively. Learn to write, learn to think, learn to move forward productively in life. What does Essay do? It's a word processing platform that helps you identify your ideas, lay out the revelations that are associated with the questions that come to hand, and learn to edit at every level of analysis. Edit at the word level, edit at the phrase level, edit at the sentence level, the paragraph level. That combination allows you to explore the questions you're most interested in a productive and creative manner, and then to tighten out your communication so that you can be concise, precise, and convincing. Why would you want to do that? Well, because every single thing that you do in your entire life, the success of every single thing you do in your entire life is going to be dependent to a large degree on your ability to formulate your ideas and communicate them. Essay.app, that will teach you to write and think. Give it a try. I think that if you practiced aiming up with enough religious devotion, so to speak, and you paid enough attention, that's in the Gospels. Christ teaches people how to pray. And that's on the Sermon on the Mount, which is the longest continuous utterances we have from him in principle. But it's an instruction manual. And the instruction is, it's brilliant, especially in the context of the Old Testament. There's an idea in the Old Testament that you consecrate the firstborn to God. And what that means psychologically is that when you embark on a new endeavor, even a new episode in a day, like anytime the set shifts, that's a good way of thinking about it, you need to remember what you're doing and why. And then you might think, well, okay, let's say that we're setting the frame for this conversation. Okay, so why don't we try to make this the deepest conversation we could manage?
I'm trying not to be funny, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm really holding back.
I hope you can be funny. You don't hold back.
I will, but just for the sake of it, you know.
Don't
I'm
hold
not going to
back.
Russell Brand you. You know, by the way, I just want to say I was watching in D.C. We did the event together.
Yeah.
And I don't feel bad about impersonating you anymore, because you and Russell had this little talk with a group, and he hit you after every line he impersonated you.
Yeah.
And I said, I feel I'm off the hook now.
He's quite the competitive conversationalist, Mr. Brad.
Yeah, and he's got a funny way of talking too. I know he did the whole, every time.
Yeah.
But he'll just throw a string of words and you go, I don't know what the hell he said, but it sounds good because of that British accent.
Yeah, well, he's got that going for him.
Manipulation of the condensation, of the retriculation, of the mastication, of the masturbation, and that's what I think about oat milk. You go, what the hell did you just
He
say?
can do that in real time.
It's incredible.
It's quite impressive, yes.
But anyways, I
Yes.
feel good because I feel off the hook after the way he got you.
Don't hold yourself back. So
Yeah.
I'll finish this story
Sure.
and we'll return to your narrative. So the idea is that before you undertake something, you remember, if you're wise, that you might as well do it in the best possible way. So that needs to be the aim. The aim would be to do it in the best possible way. So that's to aim up. That's in the religious language. That's to put the Father before all else, right? Heaven, the kingdom of heaven. So to try to make the outcome perfect. So then you have to figure out, well, why the hell are you doing this? And maybe it's because you're aiming down or you're causing trouble. Well, you'll get it. If that's what you're aiming at, you'll get it. Once you've established your aim, then pay attention. So that's why Christ says to consider the lilies of the valley, that they don't toil or spin, and that God's clothed them in glory. The idea is that once you set your aim high, all you have to do is pay attention. And that's actually correct. That's actually how perception works, because perception guides you to an aim. So what does that mean? Well, what's a prayer for? Prayer is to set your aim, not to wish for things, to set your aim. And so that's an unbelievably useful thing to know if you can practice it. And why wouldn't you practice it? If the consequence is that when you set your aim, you can see the pathway forward, which is the truth, then, okay, so you found your mother.
By the way, I was going to say everything you just said word for word.
You were going to say that?
But
I scooped
you took it. Yeah, literally the whole thing. But
well,
I'm going to let you have
did
that.
allude to it, though, because you talked about something that happened to you when you found your mother. Okay, so what happened?
Well, what happened in that moment was, I can't save anybody. That was it for me. My childhood was trying to please everybody and save everybody because it was such chaos in my house. So I used love and compassion and jokes and putting on show. I would put on these shows. It was just, my mom will die if I don't make her laugh. And who is it? Eugene. We played Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Who is that that played?
Gene Heyman? No, Gene,
curly hair. How do I not remember?
Yeah, Wilder.
So we had a similar experience. His mom was sick. I think she had cancer, and the doctor said, if you don't make your mom, if she cries, she's gonna die.
Oh, that's a good thing to know.
And so my mom told me the same thing. She said, I'm gonna die. And here's the lockbox, and here's where all the stuff is. She just sat me and my brothers and she said, I'm dying. She didn't say why or how, I said, was it a joke? Am I bombing over here? And so that was it. It was, if she's not laughing, she's going to die. So that's how serious it was for me with humor and entertainment. And so when I saw her trying to take her life, she had walked into a lake and there was pills lined up on the edge of the lake. I mean, that's burned into my head, that image. And I went and pulled her out and I guessed where she was. I didn't even know she was there. I was literally at a fork in the road in my car. And her husband called and said she took the car. And, the hospital said she can't drive. We knew she was suicidal at the time. And I just picked a place and went there and pulled her out. And I looked at her and I realized, I can't save anybody. So from her nearly dying, and she's, psychologically gone at this point, she's still alive, but that set me free.
What was the realization?
That I'm not going to save anybody. I can.
Why? And how was it that you realized that?
Because she tried to. Yeah,
it was. Because it failed.
This isn't about me.
Right.
This is something. I can't even.
Well,
begin
everybody
to
has
dissect.
their own destiny.
Yeah.
Right,
So
right.
that was the moment when I probably started saying what I actually thought, and right after.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Right after that, you know, and this is going to connect back to the whole, are you a conservative comedian? Well, then cut to
Well,
2000.
if you tell the truth, then you're probably a conservative comedian.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're getting funny too. you
Yeah,
know.
I know. What the hell?
It's really switched.
Rush Limbaugh.
Rush Limbaugh.
He was the first. I heard him as a Canadian. I went down to L.A. I don't know, 40 years ago, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I heard Rush Limbaugh, and he was like Trump in a way. You know, he was so nefarious. And I heard him, and I thought, this guy's a comedian. Like, people were taking him seriously, but mostly I thought he was hilarious. He was just hilarious. And
Well, if the new marker is that you are going to say what you want while risking offending people,
Yeah.
that is comedy.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah.
if people
That's right.
want to
That's
say
right.
that's a conservative, you know, at this point I throw my hands up. I say, fine. you know.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
So,
well, and you can see that at the Comedy Mothership too.
Yeah.
Right, because I would say the comedy that I heard there would generally be branded conservative, but that's a very strange thing because first of all, conservative comedy, that's a very weird thing, but also it's just that so many things are forbidden now and mostly forbidden by
in
the
quotes.
left. Yeah,
They're
that
not actually forbidden though. I tell comedians that, I go, don't say you can't say this anymore. I said,
Yeah.
just fucking do it.
Yeah.
You're gonna pay the price. I'm in trouble all the time. But that's just part of it now.
is that a good thing? Let me
Depends how you can
rephrase
handle
that.
it, I think.
Let's take that apart a little bit because it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's very stressful, but it's also full of opportunity, right? I mean, when things are left on the table, you can take them. You might have to pay the price for taking them, but you can take them. And so in the comedy world, it seems that the people who are willing to take the risks are likely to be the ones that were successful. Now, when you had decided to start saying what you really believed, so that's, the Jungians would call that that's the encounter with, that's the what? Realization of the persona. You know, in the Pinocchio movie, Pinocchio's a puppet. Other things are pulling his strings, right? And he comes to the truth, partly because he realizes he's lying. And that's when he starts to become real, right? That's a standard psychological transformation. And so that occurred when you realized that the act that you were putting on wasn't going to do the trick fundamentally. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mom's gonna die. Friends are gonna leave. I was dating a girl at the time who got back with her ex-boyfriend, and so I was flattened out. I mean, I barely made it through that, but that's when I started seeing your videos, and it was mind blowing. You know, I would see you say something, and it would just be explosive, and then I got into therapy, so that forced me into therapy. And it was a shitty therapist. She was a social worker.
Oh yeah,
and I know
that's dangerous.
she was.
Oh yeah.
Yep. However, and she saw everything through the lens of patriarchy, and
Yeah.
you know, I remember I said my girlfriend cheated on me. She said, "Well, did she really cheat on?" I mean, she really, you know. So that was, but it got me there, got me into therapy.
And what, that was helpful?
It was helpful to just be there and start vomiting stuff out.
Yeah, right.
You know, you got to do it. It's going to come out.
Yeah.
And then she said, I think you should go to 12-step meetings, because I was with this girl who was cheating on me and I couldn't get away from her. And so I started going to all sorts of 12-step meetings. There was no specific thing. Some people said she said it might be love addiction, or, you know, I went to the Children of Alcoholics meetings. And I went there and I just listened. And I did this for 2 years.
Oh yeah.
I locked myself in base because there was no other way out. I had to go into the fire.
So what did you find compelling about these meetings?
If you go to those meetings, and I recommend it for anyone that has any addiction, and that could be a slew of things. You go and you listen to people, and bombs are gonna go off, because you're gonna go, holy shit, that's what I thought, that's what I felt. And I started putting the pieces.
Right, so you were seeing yourself reflected in these other people.
Yes, every meeting. And, you know, everyone's sitting there sobbing and at their absolute lowest. and this guy just lost his kids for having an affair, and this, there was some for people that were grieving from deaths, so that helped with my mom's suicidal, fits. But I slowly started, listening and just putting my story together.
Apparently, I'm coming unbuttoned here.
Well, I have that effect on people. You can't touch anyone anymore, 'cause if it's not consensual.
Right. So you just do it by what? Telepathy.
Yes, you hold the door for a woman, she blows a rape whistle at this point. So, I started piecing it together through the 12-step meetings, and learning from your lectures. I can't avoid talking about the whole pinning of white privilege, and that really fucked me up.
Yeah, I had a friend who really, at least in part, committed suicide because of his excess guilt. Yeah.
I can absolutely understand.
There were other things going on, but that was a major player. He'd swallowed the whole patriarchy, oppressive patriarchy, victimizer narrative, regarded himself as a victimizer, regarded masculinity in its essence as corrupt, and he decided to take a kind of nihilistic Buddhist approach to it and not do anything, which had the additional advantage of irresponsibility, but just killed him. He was smart too and talented.
And it's going to kill a lot of young boys.
Yeah, well, I've seen plenty of that, man.
It has to be.
So how did it affect you?
Well, in the entertainment business, that, coming off the universities going woke in 2010, okay, then it was white people are evil and oppressive, they take everything. Okay, so we should give the roles to these people based on their skin color and their gender. Well, that spread from and I was an actor too. I was doing TV and film and commercials, and I do a million voices. And then suddenly you'd hear your agent or manager say, yeah, they're not really looking for white people. And you'd say, well, is the role, is it determined by skin color? No. And then you'd look at the casting breakdown.
Which meant, yes.
Prefer non-white.
Yeah,
but you can still, if you want, and then you'd feel like a piece of shit going, am I stealing this from somebody? And that just ramped up. And then comedy clubs, you'd start to hear, we have too many white guys. And now all these white men are getting together secretly, kind of, going, is this happening to you? Yeah, but we should just be quiet. And I suddenly said, no, that you can't stay quiet about this. I was taught as a kid, and it was pounded into my brain, you don't judge people on race or gender. You judge them on skill. That old racist, what's his name? Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
That guy. That's what I grew up on.
Yeah, well, you can bloody well be sure that the people who have absolutely no merit are going to find some other way to categorize human beings.
Sure.
And that's at the bottom of all of this. It's like it is an absolute 100% war on merit by the psychopaths.
Sure.
And they found a guilt lever that's so effective. It's so effective. Yeah, it's appalling. It's appalling.
They started to say it out loud. I mean, every year I'd be at a comedy club, and some agent would come and say, I'm from the biggest agents. I was flown out, I met with Jim Carrey's manager. I worked with them. And then they slowly started saying, it's not a good time for white guys. We're being told you could only submit so many, and you just got here. So, I had an email that literally said, sorry, it's too tough for white guys. And they fired me the next day. And then I had another manager scout me and say, we've been watching you for years. We see your impressions, your videos. My stuff was going viral online. And he said, you're a perfect fit. And we got on the phone a few months later, and he said, it is our company policy. This was like second BLM wave.
Yeah.
To not take on any more white men. And so
George Floyd caused even more trouble after he died than when he was alive.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, very impressive.
Well, that conversation I recorded.
Yeah.
So that one I got on tape, and I'm now in a 3-year plus lawsuit with it's called AGI Entertainment is the name of the management company.
Oh yeah.
And
that doesn't sound like much fun. Lawsuits are not much fun.
Yeah, and I just said I'm not sacrificing this thing that not only I love and I'm very good at, but also saved my life. And I think how many young boys are going to go through that and not even have the chance of me getting messy in acting school and fucking up and bombing on stage and saying the wrong thing until it's right. You know, it just kills me. And so I said, I'm going to fight it. And I got...
How's that going?
Well, it's going to go well because it's on tape.
Right,
There's nothing to hide from. I mean, it's going to get messy, and I think they're going to probably try to slander me in any way they can. And so, yeah, I've had my fair share of paranoia over the last few years, wondering what are they tracking and what are they going to try to expose and, you know, all that bullshit. But it's a hill I'm going to die on. And so we're in the discovery phase and then the deposition, and I'm not going to budge. But I got eaten alive by a lot of comedians for this. Again, it was convenient to spin that and go, oh, he's racist. He hates black people because he's fighting this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, just sit down and shut up.
Yeah.
And so I learned from your Bill C-16, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, that I watched you go through that, and just hearing you say, no, I'm not budging, period. And that was my decision.
Well, you're going to break one way or another.
Sure.
You can maybe choose what you're going to break over. That's your choice. Yeah.
And so I decided I'm going to have my cake and I'm going to eat it too.
Yeah.
I lost my Hollywood career. You know, it's tough being at comedy clubs now because there's still, you know, there's quite a bit of tension from me putting my foot down with COVID, fighting the mandates, you know, couldn't perform at the comedy clubs.
Right.
So me putting my hand up, that was shocking for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I go out and I tour and I do put my videos online.
Good. Let's talk about your career. Okay. So now you mentioned that you started changing the way that you were approaching things when you realized that you couldn't interfere with your mother's destiny, so to speak, that you couldn't save her. You couldn't save her with your act, let's say. But you didn't stop acting. You didn't stop comedy. You said you started telling the truth more. You started really saying what you had to say. What did that do to your career?
Well, when I made the decision, I'm going to say what I want, when I want, not without consequence. You know, there's this area of, oh, these unfiltered comedians are just going and, you know, making millions of dollars and surrounded by strippers and stuff. No, you still, you know, if it doesn't work, the crowd isn't going to reward it.
Right.
Even if you're a conservative comedian with a conservative crowd, you don't get rewarded. But it's a freedom that is imperative for an artist. You know, you can't say to a painter, you can't use blue. There's no difference than that. Getting every painter going, you can't use the color blue anymore. It's offensive. And they would go, well, no, I have to. So you just make the decision. I'm going to use blue. I'm going to say what I want. I'm going to make the jokes I want. You know, I mean, I'm banned.
Well, that's really working at the Comedy Mothership. I mean, the comedians there, they pretty much say what they want.
Yeah, sure. And I've bombed there plenty, and I've seen everyone bomb. But you can go home at night and go, I took the risk. So for me, it was. Well, I did impressions, so I thought, why not do an impression of Dr. Fauci? Nobody was doing it. And I did that.
Let's see that.
You know, really, Jordan, you really got to, there's 50 shots, you know. The first shot really is just to loosen up the vein and get it ready for the second, third, and fourth dose. The fifth, sixth, and seventh are to create a vaccine community in the body so that the 8th, 9th, and 10th feel seen and heard. 9, 10, and 11 are placebos, getting us to 12. Since 13 is an unlucky number, we go right to 14 through 59. Once we dig up the deceased, revaccinate them so that the worms don't spread COVID through the groundwater, spreading it to the seagulls, taking it over to Cuba. Then we take little teeny tiny needles and individually vaccinate each sperm one at a time so that the babies actually come out pre-protected. Then we can reopen around 2065. That's one thing I did online. And I got banned on TikTok for that. So I've been completely frozen and banned.
Oh, so that's permanent.
Yeah, they froze me at I was growing.
Jesus.
Yeah. So again, But it lit a fire under my ass. It's like, all right, here we go. Gloves are off.
Yeah.
Well, I'm banned on that thing, which it's absurd. We have a communist Chinese app dictating our culture. It must be the stupidest thing this country's ever done. You know,
That's
aside from some horrible things we've done. But so then it just would strengthen me and go, well, now I have nothing to lose. I was banned on Twitter until Elon came, and then I was unlocked. So it's just more fun as an artist. And
now you're touring now where?
the entire country. Every weekend I do a different city.
So what have you? How many cities is that over and for what span of time, or is this permanent? At
when
the moment?
when I couldn't do the comedy clubs during COVID, I would just go to Florida and do a veterans hall or a backyard. I started growing my fan base from people that weren't allowed in restaurants. I would go to apartments in the Upper East Side for a Jewish birthday party, and I did that for a year. For really no money, but I started growing my fan base, and I went to every state, and then I went back and I would do one night.
How did you arrange that?
I had
Was it word of mouth that, like, how did you get the opportunities, the micro opportunities to begin with?
One guy, he said, I book breweries. Do you want to do some of those? Then we did those, and we did veterans halls, and I hired a friend to be my manager. This guy named John Fatigate, who was not a manager, but because I was canceled for being white, and he believed in me so much, he pretty much gave up his career at the time, and we just worked 24/7, 7 days a week, making videos, making sketches. Did that woke Jordan Peterson video, and he produced that, and we just did it very grassroots until I was selling so many tickets that somebody said, fuck it.
Thank God for greed.
I'll work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a reliable vice,
Yeah.
greed. Yeah. Like if someone's motivated by money,
Yeah.
you can understand them.
Yep.
Yeah. If they're motivated by ideology, it's like all bets are off, man. You have no idea what's going on in their head.
Money's important.
You can deal with that.
I'm starting to see the value in it. I don't need a lot, but you need a certain amount. And so broke into the comedy clubs, and now they're asking me to come do full weekends. So I do 4 or 5 shows in a city, and it's incredible. And they're the best fans that you can dream of.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, because they know I'm going to say whatever I want, so they're primed for that.
Right, so they're your audience.
Yes.
They know who you are.
There's usually 5 people that haven't seen me, and they at some point will get up and start screaming at me.
Oh yeah, that's
which
a good
I have
sign.
fun with.
That's
it just happened in Toronto.
Yeah. Oh, really? In Toronto?
15
There's a shock.
seconds. 15 seconds. It was the record.
15 seconds.
Yep. And I went back and forth with her for a few minutes.
Yeah.
With her. Yeah. Yep. And then they dragged her out. Yeah. But
so why was she at a comedy club? Just to be offended? Was that the plan?
Probably.
Yeah. Well,
that's a big business these days.
It is, to be offended and then morally outraged. What a deal for everyone.
Yeah. She got her moment. I filmed it. I'll put it online and get some more fans from it. But
right.
But they're very fun shows, and I don't have an opener. I do 90 minutes, 80 to 90 minutes.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm going to come and see you. Now it's Sunday.
Yep.
Right? I think I'm going to come Sunday or Friday. I have to figure that out yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
You better write a couple minutes.
Yeah. So where would you put yourself in the arc of your career? Like you said that you were doing reasonably well in Hollywood at one point.
I was growing. A co-star, then guest star, where you'd have your own story, and I was being brought in for series regulars against, some big names.
Yeah.
And that's when it all...
And that was when?
That was probably about 8 years ago. And then the COVID thing, then but I did...
Death for performers.
Daily Wire brought me in, and I did Terror on the Prairie with Gina Carano, and that was wild, and that was non-union, so there was no COVID rule. And then Lady Ballers, which we were both in.
Yeah, right.
And then Mr. Bertram, the animated
That
series.
wasn't on my bucket list, being on Lady Ballers for the Daily Wire. Like, I would have never really presumed that was going to happen.
You or what's her name, the swimmer who... Riley was in it as well.
Yeah, right. I don't imagine that was in her bucket list either.
But that's a great way to fight this, by bringing her into a film about men playing in women's sports. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
So
well,
now,
maybe that's starting to come to an end. The UK decided that men and women actually exist, and the Supreme Court ruled on that. So that was
Jolly
a big
good.
deal. And you Americans seem to be a little more sane about that. Canada, of course, no, but
That's
we like
great.
to lag in our progressive manner, and especially economically. So you know that the typical Canadian now makes 60% of the typical American.
Really?
Yes.
What about the female Canadian? Would you cut that in half? Since
No, it was
they-
70%. I think they only make 70 cents
wage
on the dollar
gap?
because it's all they're worth, as we all know.
Okay.
So yeah, it's obviously it's because the statistics are calculated by dim-witted, envious feminists who
course.
have nothing better to do than whine and bitch.
I've dated plenty of them. Yeah. I'm actually I was on a show called Gutfeld on Fox
Oh,
News.
yeah.
I'm off the show because I asked a woman out for coffee, and I assume manager, onlooker, called it harassment, called security,
Really?
and had me escorted out. And so that's a new thing I'm working out. That was my first Me Too, which I'd call the most trivial Me Too in the history of the Me Too movement. This was a woman who consensually agreed to get coffee. We exchanged information, and somebody was so disgusted by that they called it harassment.
Wasn't someone after the same woman by any chance, was it?
Well, it might have been.
That'd be my guess.
They won't even have a conversation. Nobody at Fox, nothing. I'm just gone. And I put it out public. I put this out. I waited for 2 months.
Yeah.
But again,
That's probably wise.
I waited 2 months, but I just said I'm not gonna let this happen.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
tragic that young men are disappearing in the dating scene. It's not good. Dating apps are not good.
Yes, well,
And
I
I'm
figured
not
out
gonna
something
roll
horrible.
over.
Do you want to know what
Yes,
it is?
absolutely.
Do you know how you define consent? Marriage. Yeah.
That's good.
Well, look, I really tried to think it through, because there are so many. There's too many variables every other way. So, like, one of the things I saw this starting to happen on university campuses when they put all these rules in about what constituted consent. Now, the thing they really always avoided was alcohol, because there's no date rape without alcohol. Like, alcohol is at the bottom of almost all normative sexual misbehavior. So if the universities were the least bit serious about the things they claim to be serious about, for example, they'd focus on alcohol.
Yeah.
But there is a conundrum.
You're signing your will away when you drink. I remember dating girls going, "No, if you are out drinking, it's off the table. You've signed your will away."
Well, and the strange thing about it is that there's some truth in that, right? Because alcohol does make people, unconscious if you drink enough of it. So that happens to be a problem. And then before unconscious, there's not knowing what the hell's going on or caring. And then there's the next day regret. And part of the next day regret is, well, did I really give consent? And then you can't remember. Like I did a lot of research on alcohol. We showed that if people drank enough to get their blood alcohol level up to legal intoxication, so that was 0.08, they showed about a 75% decrement in memory after 3 minutes. Like, you could tell them something, ask them 3 minutes later. The people who were, and that's not very drunk.
It's called the Joe Biden effect.
Yeah, right.
Where are we?
So, under what circumstances do you actually have consent, like real consent? Well, I guess it depends on how seriously you take sex. If you think that it's a game, then there's no issue. But the problem with that theory is it's not a game. So you're liable to get hooked in a vicious manner. And I don't see any solution to that except for the traditional solutions. And the kind of stories you're telling, the fact that, the workplaces have become these toxic pits of surveillance. I mean, where the hell are people supposed to meet each other if it's not at work?
It used to be about 80% or something like that.
What are you're only going to meet the people that you meet?
Yeah, and I don't work. So to me, that was a place.
Right.
That was a very. First of all, I was there for 2 years. I never flirted or asked anyone out. So I waited 2 years to have the confidence. That day, I'm going on Gutfeld, which is the #1 comedy show.
Yeah.
Oh, that gave me a little confidence. And then I had a comedy special on Fox Nation, and it was the #1 show on the platform. It beat out Martin Scorsese's series. So I walked in, and that's the level of,
Insanity.
And I still was nervous, but I thought,
Yeah.
Tyler, you're 38. You're getting your life together. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I'm under 6 feet tall. And I asked someone out for coffee. And that
Which is
was
about as innocuous
such
an approach as you can possibly manage.
Yeah, let's go meet in public during the day, avoid alcohol, and this is going to be 30 minutes.
Yeah. I think they should have put you in prison, frankly.
Well,
They did put you in a form of prison, actually.
I did for about 2 weeks. I mean,
I bet.
I had a spiral. No, for 2 months.
Yeah.
Just going, did they put out a company-wide alert? There's a creep walking around asking women out for coffee, What if they don't like milk? What if they have allergies? That's rape in this building. And so I just couldn't believe it. And when I put the story out, some press picked it up. They all off the record said this sounds completely bogus and made up.
Yeah, but I would say also likely dreadfully common.
Yeah.
It's also the case that when those draconian policies get put into place, people can weaponize them immediately, and the worst people do that instantly. The most jealous people, the most sadistic people, the most manipulative people, they grab onto those inhuman rules and apply them for their own benefit.
What do you, not to say we're going to find a solution in 10 seconds, but how do you push back? I mean, what I'm doing personally is saying, I'm not going to, the next day I felt like a creep.
The only way you push back against anything ever is by telling the truth.
Yeah.
That's the only strategy.
Yeah.
There are no strategies. This is something else that's very useful to realize. In life, there are no strategies. Or you could put it a different way. You could say that the best medium to long-term strategy is the truth.
Yeah.
And so when I'm in a complicated situation, which is quite common, I just say what I think, always.
Well, I did that based on your advice.
Yeah.
So me going on Twitter and doing that was what do I do? Just tell the truth.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this also means that you have to act in a manner that allows you to tell the truth about what you did, right? Because, well, for obvious reasons, because otherwise you have to pretend you did something else. So that forces you to clean up your life so that you can actually represent it accurately. What happened when you went public with the story, such as it was?
It millions of, views on Twitter.
Right.
And then, I don't think of myself as famous in any way, shape, or form. The press picked it up, but I didn't even think that might happen.
Oh, yes.
I'm banned on Twitter. I'm a naughty boy.
Right.
So, I had no followers, pretty much anywhere. So which is probably helpful because I don't overthink it. I just said, put it out there. The press, they said somebody made an anonymous claim that they witnessed what happened, and they said you grabbed her phone and forced your number in it, and you demanded she confirm you had her phone number. None of which happened, and I take screenshots because this stuff happens. But it was somebody watching that was so upset or jealous or perhaps far left who's working at Fox News, which there's a lot of them. And, but I just said, I get no due process. I can't even have a
that old patriarchal thing, due process.
I worked there for free, by the way, and I never complained about that, but I busted my ass flying the middle of the night cross country to get to that show because I loved going on that show because you can say what you want. And I love Greg and I love everybody there, but I just thought this is pretty alarming that they're all held hostage to this, insanity.
Yeah.
And I took the hit. I won't be back on there, but I took a big financial hit for that, probably quarter to a half of my income, because that's how I sold tickets, was through that show.
Right.
But I thought, what's more important than the truth?
Again, I think practically speaking, the truth is a weird strategy because, look at it this way. Why do people lie? They lie to gain an advantage they don't deserve, or they lie to avoid a punishment they do deserve, generally. Like, there's other reasons, but those are two big categories. But the problem is that there's a difference between what happens to you in a year and what happens now. And so if you lie, well, you might avoid what's coming to you, but then you don't learn, and you might gain something you don't deserve, but word gets around. And so it could easily be that you'll find out that if you can be patient enough, and that's part of what constitutes faith in the truth, right? If you're patient enough, it will turn around. Right. Now, the journey to turning around might not be fun.
I've watched you go through it many times.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's happened many times. Many times.
But a heroic act for you to do it, because you gave the model.
It's an act of terror.
Yeah.
Actually, because I understand.
Sure.
I actually understand what happens if you get tangled up in lies.
Yeah.
It's not, well, you said in your household, nobody could tell each other the truth. Well, that's a totalitarian state. Like that's hell.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you don't want that. That's not good. That's not good. There's nothing worse than that. You can't even exist in a situation like that.
You had a client once, I remember you said, I don't think anyone had ever told this person the truth in their life.
Oh yeah. That was quite common. Or allowed them to.
Allowed them to.
Yeah, or listened. Yeah, and that's very common. It's very common. Yeah, steeped in sin. That's the theory, right? That's when your whole environment is dominated by lies. It's brutal. And the only way out of that is to stop participating. That's it.
I've removed myself from many places. I rarely go to comedy clubs anymore. There's too much risk of gossip and lies and, backstabbing and that type of thing. It's my own personal healthy need, and drinking and drugs, and you can go on and on and on.
Yeah.
But
nighttime businesses are a risk for that.
It was a sacrifice. You have to.
So tell me about the tour and how that's going, and what size audiences you're playing, and how often you're laying out your comedic routines.
Well, it started with backyards and veteran halls, and then it moved to one woman seeing me in Nashville go on, I think after Theo Vaughn, and she said,
"That's hard to do. Theo's pretty damn funny."
Before or after him?
Yeah.
And she just said, "Who the hell are you? And why don't you have an agent?" And she got me an agent.
Oh yeah.
And we booked.
When was that?
This was two and a half years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we did one-nighters all around the country. You got to go prove yourself. You go to a comedy club on a Tuesday night. They say, "All right, how many people can you bring on a Tuesday night?"
You're right.
And turns out my fans are pretty hardcore, and a lot of them lost their livelihoods from COVID.
Oh yeah.
So they were available to come on a Tuesday night.
Ha! You see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I started packing these places out, and then we'd have to add a second show. And I nearly killed myself because it was how can you turn this down? But I learned how to do it, and now I'm on year 2. But it went from one-nighters to the entire weekend, which also giving, or losing, I'd say, my acting career to an extent. This has replaced it. This is, I'm all in. So
what does it mean to be all in?
Well, it's giving up alcohol.
Yeah.
It's giving up toxic people at all cost, any negativity. Because you have to show up, as you know, when you're on stage.
Yeah.
You have to give them yourself, and
you have to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want them to, this is a miracle.
Yeah. Well, we're very careful with the people we travel with. I have logistics guys, security guys. I have a great tour manager, John O'Connell. Used to be a comedian. John never causes any trouble. Always in good humor. Entirely not neurotic. Plus, he used to be a comedian, so he's damn funny. If there's any problem that comes up, he solves it.
Fantastic.
And my logistics guys, my security guys, they're all awake, and they treat the public very well, which is also seriously important, right? So, and then you get to the stage on time, and away you go.
And I took not a loss. I probably broke even the first year. I made a decision, I'm going to do this right, and I'm going to, maybe get the better flight, the better hotel, the better meal. I travel with my dog. And so I decided if I think I'm going to really make it and suddenly have money and be able to turn that on, I don't think a lot of people can do it. I think they're stuck in that depravity mindset from the early days. And I saw a lot of comedians that are very famous and they're miserable and they don't take care of themselves on tour and they worry about the price of the cheeseburger. And I said, Tyler, we're not doing it. We're not doing that. So I spent all of my money to do it comfortably.
Well, you're kind of you're living on the road,
Yeah.
right? And then if you're playing the long-term game, you want to think, okay, my wife and I sat down and talked about this a lot. It's like, all right, we have an opportunity here. It's an unparalleled opportunity, a more or less continuous book tour.
I heard you're tough to share a room with. She had to.
Yeah, well, we realized that we were living on the road.
Yeah.
And that was too close quarters, And so that actually worked out extremely well. And the reason it worked out well, there was the sacrifice, of course, that went along with it. But the tour is much more sustainable. And that's what you have to think. Like, what's getting in the way? What is going to make us say no instead of yes? And then you have to be honest about that because you think, well, that little thing wouldn't make you say no. It's like, you don't have to have many obstacles littering your path before you start taking something for granted and stop doing it. Really. And so you want to be thinking for the long haul. And I don't know, how long do you think if you could, how long would you tour?
I really want to get back to acting because I let that whole woke thing take me down for a while.
Has the industry turned around enough so that people of your shade have
some of the biggest agents and managers not only calling me but breaking into my green room at shows, and I told them all
them hustled out
to go fuck themselves because I don't trust them, and it did too much damage. It did too much damage. And so for now, I can't be around it in any capacity until I have the means to produce my own, write, direct, and produce my own films. So I'm going to tour and save up and hopefully find...
So I have a question about
Sure.
that. That'd be a psychological question, I suppose.
You know what they said too? They said, Tyler, we think white people are going to be accepted again soon.
Yeah.
I said, do you hear yourself? That's your pitch? Do you know my story?
That's rough,
That's your
man.
pitch? Shane Gillis is doing well. And I go, yeah, he is. He's brilliant. And he went through hell. And you're citing one white guy on Netflix? I said, fuck off. And so I still have a lot of anger about it, obviously. But
is that worth revisiting? I mean, look, I don't want to mess around with your life, and I have no right or desire to do so because it's your life, but
I'll tour with you.
have
Sure,
a
I'll do
reason
it.
to be annoyed, but I wonder if are there opportunities that you're foregoing because you're angry? And do you need that? People make mistakes. They make a lot of stupid mistakes, and the people that you're talking about made a lot of stupid mistakes. But that was everywhere. It was a real social contagion, And I guess maybe I'm wondering if you made your point and whether you're hurting yourself in consequence of, I know you stuck to your guns, and I'm sure that was bloody difficult.
Yeah.
But have you made your point?
I think I have to win this lawsuit before I move forward.
I see.
It's exhausting. It's still, though it's moving slow, it's still...
I have some advice about lawsuits.
Sure, I would love
fine.
to.
Put aside 5% of your time every week to think about the lawsuit and never think about it other than that.
Good, yeah.
So put aside some time.
Yeah.
Because it's who knows how long it'll go.
Yeah.
Could go for 10 more years. It could go a long time.
Absolutely.
So you have to segregate it, isolate it, and not let it bleed over into the rest of your life.
I'm getting better at that, for sure.
Well,
for sure.
That putting away that time to think about it,
Mm-hmm.
then when the thoughts come to mind, you think, no, I'm gonna think about that Tuesday at 10:30 for 20 minutes or for an hour, whatever it takes. But it's better to have that sequestered to manage it.
Great idea.
Yeah, it helps a lot. Yeah.
I think it's become just, I've accepted it, that this is a part of my journey.
Yeah.
It was embarrassing for a while. It's quite embarrassing to...
Yeah, well, lawsuit's no joke. It's it's kind of like a chronic illness.
Yeah, and to be turned away for your skin color. And it's not that I wasn't...
That's the progressive thing to do.
Yeah, it was humiliating, confusing, all that. I've gone...
Yeah, no kidding.
But I know it's wrong, and so I know it's worth fighting. And I think when I put that to rest, I can start, I can start producing my own films. But no, I won't work with anybody, any big studios or any of that. I couldn't trust them. I mean, I had a TV show that I sold as I got a development deal, and it was me and another guy, and they said, it's 2 white guys. They said, bring us a stack of non-white people to hire on the show. So we had to get this, I saved it. And it's just a list of people who aren't white, that not necessarily talented or fit for this specific TV show. But it's too much to re-enter right now.
Yeah, okay.
And I can.
Well, you've thought it through, obviously.
Yeah, and I can go on stage and really, there's a lot of people out there. They're desperate for healing. I just left Toronto, and I said, have you guys recovered from this? And
Toronto was really bad.
People are
COVID.
Suffering
oh
still.
Oh my God. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was. I don't think probably went to 150 cities around the COVID period. I think Toronto was the worst.
What do you mean? How they...
In terms of lockdown
Sure,
and intensity of oppression and self-righteousness, that whole combination, it was pretty brutal.
Yeah,
and I don't think the city has recovered from it.
No.
So
what do you think, how do you think people can be guided to recover from that? Because we're not going to get an apology from the government. Trudeau's not going to come out in a headdress and blackface and say, I'm sorry. Is it just...
Yes, well, he's departed for parts unknown, thank God. Yes,
he's
taking all his shame with him, unfortunately leaving another Liberal in charge of the country. So Canadians are going to pay for that, in my estimation.
Sure. Is it just
I don't know, probably as a consequence of people like you doing what you're doing with the lawsuit, is by trying to set things right again and by not putting up with that kind of nonsense anymore. To root it out. Mm-hmm. That's going to be a lot of work. There's a lot of nonsense. There's all the net zero nonsense, all that climate apocalypse catastrophe, all the notions that there are too many people on the planet, all that anti-family nonsense, all this idiocy between men and women that have divided them politically in such a catastrophic way, all this racial tension that was generated out of nothing by ideologues starting in about 2010. Toronto had become race blind. When I raised my kids in Toronto, no one cared. Literally, no one cared.
That's how it was.
And that meant the bloody moralizing progressives had nothing to do.
Yeah.
And so, problem solved. Well, we need a problem because we don't have anything else to do except complain and whine and protest. Better manufacture one. Sickening. So there's a lot that needs to be straightened out still. Yeah. Well, you do that by telling the truth.
Yeah.
And if you tell the truth in a witty manner, you get to be a comedian.
Sure.
And people think you're funny.
And if I do it in your voice, I get I get the serious the serious
How many
money.
impressions can you do?
I probably do upwards of 50, but there's some that I don't even know I can do until I do them. I have a joke about
Quite a talent, man.
about women's voices these days, like the vocal fry, and I just said, why does every, and by the way, I love RFK Jr., but I said, why does every woman under 30 sound like RFK Jr.? And then I started doing this whole thing about, this is how women sound in bed, I want you to choke me, right? Call me a bitch. And I do that that just came out.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And all my fans love RFK.
Yeah.
And I think he's a fan of mine. But that was an interesting one. Rogan shut it down on his podcast. He's like, don't do so. I didn't want to piss him off. But it's interesting because some people say
RFK has a sense of humor.
Exactly, and they say that's offensive, and I say, well, no,
it's not.
I'm just doing his voice. No. But that's become one of my most fun jokes to do. But the voice is just, I think it was a part of the mom crying and the mirroring. It was my ability to mirror people because I thought,
that capacity to modulate your voice like that, that's really a remarkable talent. I really enjoyed watching Rich Little, for example. There was a French Canadian who was an unbelievably good mimic too. I can't remember his name. He was very famous for a while.
Jim Carrey's fantastic.
Yeah, Carrey's good at it. Yeah.
Nobody can
Russell
do-
Brand's pretty good at it.
He's good.
Yeah, that's that ability to. You're particularly good at it with the voice. You know, some of the impressionists, they also, I don't know, maybe you can do that too. They get the gestures down, and well, you do that with me to some degree.
Sure, yeah.
So, but it's like being inhabited by the spirit of someone else. It's a real talent, that shape-shifting ability.
It's a lot of fun. And part of what I think when I started was I was actually so afraid to say what I wanted on stage. I would use you. I would use Trump. And then the crowd couldn't get mad because well, the bloody feminists, these bitches, you know, and they'd go,
Right.
oh, that's Jordan Peterson saying it.
Right.
And I thought, oh, I get away scot-free.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, part of acting is the opportunity to inhabit all sorts of different fictional realities and experiment with them. I mean, that's why people go to movies, to see that.
Yeah.
So it's a perfectly reasonable thing for an actor to do. It's nice to know what your own voice is, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I'm trying to do that a little bit more.
So I'm going to come and see you Friday or Sunday. I think
Fantastic.
you're in Phoenix. Tell me where your next venues are and how people can find your tickets.
I'll be in Baltimore. I think by the time this comes out, I'll be doing a full weekend in Baltimore. And then I have June off, and then I start
Everybody's vacation favorite.
Yep, and then I start back up. I have 100 shows the rest of the year. So
100 shows.
Yeah, all over the country, and then hopefully I'll do Europe next year.
When?
In 2026.
Do you know when in
We're
2026?
kind of working on that
I
right
see,
now.
I see.
Yeah, but
Because I'm in Europe between January and March in 2026. Maybe we can.
That would be fun.
That would be fun.
Yeah, that's a dream. I start doing your voice and you come out and just push me off.
Yeah, well, maybe we can do that in Phoenix.
Oh, that'd be great.
That might be
Oh,
fun.
yes.
Yeah.
I wasn't even going to ask.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what comes up spontaneously.
Okay.
That would be good. Well, it's a pleasure talking to you.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, well, and
I'm
congratulations.
glad I didn't have quite enough time to process coming on this because I'm not sure I would have handled it well.
Well, you handled it 100% as far as I'm concerned. I'm looking forward to seeing your show. It was very interesting to hear your story. Congratulations on your persistence and your persistent success. I mean, you've taken quite the snake-like path on the entertainment side and a lot of obstacles, but the fact that you raised your career again from the ashes on the comedy circuit, and I really like the emphasis in your story about the fact that, you know, you kind of played anywhere. And you have to do that. You have to do the work.
Yeah.
And you take the opportunities where they're given to you, and then maybe they'll grow. If you do them seriously, if you take them with some gratitude, then they'll grow. And now you've got a real fan base. So that's a ground up word of mouth fan base. That's a good deal.
I owe them. Yeah. I like showing up no matter how rough the circumstances.
Yeah.
I had a stomach virus on my birthday and showed up in Orlando. I didn't tell them. But I said, you're going to go get on that damn stage.
No matter what. Yeah, I've been in bed many times, half an hour before a lecture, an hour before a lecture, thinking, Jesus, I can't even get out of bed. And I'm supposed to be in front of 3,000 people in an hour. There's no way that's going to happen.
And change their lives, hopefully.
Yeah. But it happens.
Good for you.
Yeah. Well,
you look fantastic.
Thank God. Well, and thank God for that opportunity, you know, because it's really good to have something to get the hell out of bed for when you're not feeling that great. So, and that's some real utility and purpose, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, good talking to you, man.
Absolute
I'm looking
pleasure.
forward to the show. And
well, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. And to everybody watching and listening on YouTube and the other platforms, Spotify, etc., Apple, thank you very much for your time and attention. Great to talk to Tyler Fischer today. And
make your bed.
Yeah, exactly.
It really started there.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Little things aren't little things you do every day.
Yep.
That's your life. Mm-hmm. Right. People don't understand that. They're waiting for something special. It's like, no, your life is what you do every day. So get it right. Yeah. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Thank you to the Daily Wire for making this possible and the film crew here in Scottsdale today. Much appreciated. We're going to continue this for half an hour on the Daily Wire side. And so if those of you who are interested in continuing and who would like to throw some support the Daily Wire way, join us and we'll delve a little bit more into Tyler's background and his career and the state of comedy for that matter. Bye.